Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to the Cruise News. And let me start off by saying happy 4th of July. Hopefully everybody's going to get an opportunity today to do a little 4th of July celebrating. Maybe you're even lucky enough to be celebrating on board a cruise ship, because I bet there's going to be some good parties on board the ships tonight. Now, I've got a couple of different cruise news stories for you today. I got some cruise cancellations. I have some good news for Alaska sailings. And I have a Norwegian cruise. Well, they got a little surprise on embarkation day. One that probably not everybody's gonna like. So cruise story number one, Royal Caribbean has announced that they are canceling some sailings in December of 2024 and January of 2025 for the Freedom of the Seas. Now that's so the ship can go into dry dock for routine maintenance and some upgrades. We're continuously working to improve our ships and the many amenities they have to offer. We're taking Freedom of the Seas into dry dock for routine maintenance and exciting improvements. Unfortunately, this means your upcoming December 21st, 2024 cruise has been canceled. So the cancellations begin December the 21st of 2024, and they do go through the beginning of January 2025, which unfortunately means that both the Christmas cruise and the New Year's Eve cruise on board Freedom of the Seas have also been canceled. Now, this is over a year out, so it does give guests an opportunity to book on different ships, kind of rearrange their plans, but sometimes getting a Christmas cruise and a New Year's cruise can be a little bit difficult. Those are very popular cruises and they sell out. So hopefully this doesn't affect anybody's, special holiday cruise. Now, guests do have a couple of options. Hey, they can rebook one of the select 2024 or 2025 itineraries on board the Freedom of the Seas or the Oasis of the Seas departing from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They can rebook on any other Royal Caribbean international sailing that's not included in the first option, or they can cancel their sailing altogether. So if you are on one of those affected sailings, you should have already been notified and given your options and what choices that you can make for your upcoming cruise. And Royal Caribbean hasn't announced what exciting improvements they're going to be making to Freedom of the Seas, but as soon as we hear anything, we'll share it out there with everybody. Story number two is going to be Alaska sailing. Now, this is going to be good news for Alaska because the last week or so, there has been talk. There has been some possibility of a strike that was going to happen in British Columbia, and there were some concerns that it could affect Alaska-bound cruises because, cruise ships sailing from U.S. ports or that sail from Vancouver sail up to Alaska. They have to make stops back in Canada if they sail from Seattle, San Francisco, Long Beach, any U.S. port. And a strike in British Columbia that said there was some concern that could possibly affect cruising. A strike with the longshoremen there could have prevented cruise ships from being tied off. They could have gone on strike while cruise ships were in port, prevented cruise ships from leaving. So there was some legitimate concern. So the strike by the International Longshoremen and Warehouse Union in Canada did go into effect on July the 1st. But this is not expected to affect cruising. But I said it was a concern because there are 3 cruise ports in British Columbia. You have Vancouver, Victoria, and Prince Rupert, and all 3 of those could have been affected, but like I said, they're not expected to be. The ILWU in British Columbia, well, they have indicated that they don't intend to stop servicing cruise ships during the strike. Robert Louis Manning, the CEO of the Greater Victoria Harbor Authority, a whole bunch of words right there, made the following statements in a recent radio interview. Aside from the fact that the union has issued a strike notice, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go on strike. The International Longshore Union is critical in everything we do at our deep water terminal at Ogden Port. They help berth the ships, manage logistics, both on and off vessels, and set up gangways for people to come ashore and reboard later on. We can't do it without them. They care deeply about this business. My expectation is if they do go on strike, they will not halt operations of cruise businesses, despite the fact that they may be on strike for cargo-related things in other ports. So, good news for Alaska Cruise, it's not expected to affect cruise ships. That doesn't mean it won't. That doesn't mean, I guess, that the possibility doesn't exist. But both the union and the Port Authority are both saying that they're not expecting any effects to cruise shipping Cargo shipping, yes. Other things, yes, but not for cruise ships. So this is good news for everybody that has an Alaska cruise that has to make a stop in Canada or sails from Canada here for the remainder of the 2023 cruising season. Because we're just getting to the peak, to the top here of the Alaska cruising season. And any disruption right here in the middle would just be, a disaster across the board. It would be bad for cruising. It's bad for the port stops up there in Alaska. It's bad for the passengers that have been waiting to take their Alaska cruise. So definitely something we don't need. So fingers crossed that this all stays firm, this news stays good, and Alaska cruises continue. And finally, passengers on board the Norwegian Dawn. Well, they got a little bit of an unexpected surprise, one that I'm not sure everybody's going to be all that happy about. So the Norwegian Dawn sailed this past Sunday, July the 2nd, from Copenhagen on a 10-day British Isle cruise. Now, when folks booked this cruise, they looked at their reservation, they saw the 8 different port stops that they were going to be making, and one of those 8 port stops was a tender port. So if they didn't like tendering, they still had plenty of opportunities where they wouldn't have to do it. And tendering can be a challenge for everybody. It's definitely a challenge in patience. It takes longer to get off the ship to the shore. You usually have less time in port. You got to make sure you're back a little bit earlier to catch that last tender. Usually there's some standing in line to get off the ship and then get back to the ship. And that's just, for your everyday average passenger. You also have passengers that have challenges with mobility, and depending if there's steps down into the tender, anything like that, it can present an additional challenge. So all these passengers went to the cruise port, the terminal, on embarkation day, thinking they had one tender port, only to discover that it had been wrong on the website the whole time, and there wasn't one tender port, that 5 out of the 8 port stops were actually tender ports. It has come to our attention that the reservation system did not accurately portray a number of ports on this itinerary are tender ports. As such, please note that we will be visiting a total of 5 tender ports during this voyage. Rest assured, our dedicated onboard team will be readily available to assist you with the tendering process. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Surprise! Lots of tender ports. Way more than you originally anticipated. These tenders, if you have mobility issues, they can still get you on these tenders. You will still be able to go into these cruise ports. It just may take a little bit of extra work, and it's definitely going to take a little bit of extra patience, particularly when, like I said, folks were not expecting to have 4 extra times that they had to do this. I could say for me personally, if I was on a British Isle cruise, which is one of the cruises I really want to take, and this little surprise came up, I wouldn't necessarily be, jumping for joy about it, but I'd still be on a British Isle cruise, but not everybody is me. So I'll throw it out there. Would having 4 additional tender ports affect your cruise? Would it affect your ability to get into port and enjoy and see the things that you want to see? If you were thinking you were going to be able to dock and get right off the ship onto the pier versus now having to take the boat, does that make a difference to you at all? Will it affect the enjoyment of your cruise? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think about having additional tender ports added to your cruise that you just didn't know were there. And that's going to be our cruise news video for today. I hope everyone has enjoyed today's video. If you have, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day and a really great 4th of July. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.